As a woman who was born and raised in South Korea and was born in 1998, who's been listening to K-pop for 27 years and almost 28 years, I can't stand the current K-pop right now. And I know the statement I'm gonna say today is gonna be quite controversial. And I know I might face with some disagreements and some disappointments about my opinion, but I'm just gonna say right away because it's my podcast, and I've been really hesitated to say this loud that I'm not really happy about the current K-pop things, like everything, the music, the dance, the trends and everything, because I am not very young compared to the current listeners of current K-pop. So I assume the current K-pop is like a fourth generation, maybe, or 3.5. Can someone please analyze who is specifically second generation, third generation, and fourth, and whatever? But who knows, whatever. As a person who was born in 1998 and spent my school days, my teenage years during 2010s, to me, K-pop is like EXO, Girls' Generation, Wonder Girls, Beast, After School, and Tiara, which are what you can call 2.5 generation or second generation of K-pop. And I might sound like a really old person who just became super nostalgic about the past, because everybody has a tendency to romanticize their past. But especially with music, I think when it comes to music, I think it's really easy to be really nostalgic and romanticizing the stuff that were trending when you were in your teenage years. And I agree with that. But, since even I say like this, I'm a big fan of K-pop. And I believe every Korean people has their K-pop DNA imprinted in their bones. I can guarantee that. Everybody, okay, not everybody. I know there's going to be some exception. I do agree with that. But I think it's really hard to hate K-pop if you're born and raised in Korea. And since I have such a deep love and hate emotion about K-pop, not even hate, 99% of emotion about K-pop is nostalgic, love, and supportiveness of the pop music that was born and cultivated in my home country. And I'm also a huge supporter of K-pop as a contributor to our economical statement. I don't know how to put it this way, but you know what? I lived in the UK in 2010 and 2011 for 2 years, and for me it was really shocking to realize that most of British people didn't know my country, which is South Korea, and which is unimaginable right now, because I believe most of people know the existence of South Korea. Actually, I'm not really sure about it though. I was in a comparatively a small city, not like in a big city like London, where not many people have visited Asian countries and not many people are interested in Asian culture overall. So I might feel similar if I visit Loughborough, which the city I lived. If I went to Loughborough again and experienced 2 years again in Loughborough at the same time, I don't know if I would feel the huge difference, but still. So approximately 15 or 60 years ago, not many people knew South Korea. When it was really shocking, because I believe if you were born and raised in a certain country, it's really easy to be very narrow-minded and be kind of over confident with your country, because sometimes the country educates their children to be confident and to be proud of their own country, which is great. I'm not disagreeing with that or like criticizing the general fact, the general opinion, and general, I don't know, the way they educate their kids. And I know that it's really important to be proud of your background, like your country, your family, the things that you cannot change, right? Because if you're not proud and not like, in a worst of case, like hates things that is really hard to change, like again, the country you were born and your background and your family, or I don't know, your body, like height or something, then it's gonna influence your life very badly. So again, it's really wise and nice to educate the kids to be proud of where you're from. And I highly agree with that. And I think it's going to be the way that I'm going to educate my own kids as well. But still, because back in South Korea, when I was still like a primary school student, I think I kind of learned, I don't really like clearly remember it, but I remember that I was educated to be proud of my country, Jeju Island, everything overall. And I was kind of assuming that many people would know South Korea, North Korea, of course, because they are the splendid neighbor anyways. So I was kind of expecting that they would definitely know North Korea because they are the baddie of the, I don't know, the global earth. Anyways, so I was assuming that, yeah, of course they would know North Korea, but I would really hope they would also know South Korea. Actually, I think I was kind of like almost 100% sure that people would know South Korea anyway. But again, in 2010, 2011, nobody knew South Korea, almost nobody. Again, I lived in a small city, not like in a big city like London. So most of the people I've talked to and had a personal relationship with were those who've never been to Asian countries, of course South Korea, not even Japan, not even China. And I think nowadays a lot of Western people are kind of obsessed with Japanese traveling and stuff, and it was even before that. It was even before people being obsessed with traveling to Japan and being more interested in Asian culture overall. So it was way before that trend, and people didn't really care about South Korea. And it was before Gangnam Style, and it was before BTS. So it's really easy to assume that my 2 years in UK was always me and my family explaining where my country is and what my country is famous for. And sometimes it's kind of depressing, because sometimes some people, like, I want to say this, like, if you're from a country where most of people would definitely know, like America or France, those countries that has iconic images that most people would know straightforwardly, not even, you can just say it, right? But if you're from a country where you always have to explain where you're from and what the country's famous for, or otherwise, those countries that has like a notorious rumors about it, I know, like, both cases, those people who are not from a very famous country, or from the country that has notorious backgrounds, are quite stressed, not gonna lie. They are kind of stressed, because I hadn't really experienced the latter case. So for me, I always had to explain where it is by saying, well, do you know where China is? I hope you do. and obviously most of the people would say, of course, and then I would also add saying, well, you know, we're Japanese, right? And they would also say, yeah, of course, it's a beautiful country. It's right next to China, isn't it? And I say, great, well, my country's in the middle. Thank you. So isn't it, like, in my mind, I found it really strange when I first found out that people don't even know where South Korea is, because, come on, if you've seen a Google map, then you must have like checked what countries between in those two famous Asian countries, which is China and Japan. I was kind of expecting that it's really easy to spot, but humans are really bad at spotting things that they're not interested. And I didn't really know that when I was young. Now I know, because I just realized that most people don't give a shit the things they're not interested or not famous. And it was a time when people didn't really care about South Korea, because they knew LG, they knew Samsung, and strangely, I would say 80% of students in my previous high school in Loughborough, they used phones from LG and Samsung. I would say 80-90%, because I think it was before the iPhone era. So I would say 90% of people, students, including teachers as well, of course, were using the phones that were manufactured and designed in my own country, and they don't even know the existence of my country. Was quite paradoxical. Anyway, so it was me experiencing what it was like to be a student from a country that nobody really knew. Was quite stressing, because again, like I told you before, I always explain where it is and what is famous for and blah blah blah. I would say, well, it's my country literally made your phone. So yeah, after experiencing that, I was kind of feeling a bit down about the fact that not many people knew South Korea. I didn't even expect them to like my country. I just wanted something small. I just hope they would know the existence of my country. But anyways, miraculously, after Gangnam Style, Psy, after BTS, people started to know our existence. And it was purely by the power of culture, the power of pop music, the K-pop culture. And after the K-pop boom and BTS and Blackpink and what else, the K-pop, the Netflix series thing, I just can't believe that K-pop was the biggest reason that we had grown such a global fame. And I'm really thankful. I'm genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, that I'm really, really thankful about it. But again, at the same time, because I'm Korean, and most people get over critical about the things they are actually from. For example, I don't know if it's a great example to say this, but it's really easy to criticize and talk badly about your family, like your brother or sister or your mom and dad. It's really easy to say that, but at the same time, it is a taboo, and it's something that you should never ever do, is to criticize the other person's family, right? Because it's rude, right, to say bad things about someone else's family. So it's something like that. It's really easy, and it's really I don't know. Yeah, it's really easy to be really critical, and overly critical actually, about a thing that is so close to you, like your family or your own country, or your own or your own music industry. So I'm gonna be super Korean today. I'm gonna be really critical about the K-pop industry right now, because I'm a person who was born and raised in South Korea for 27 years and who has huge love about K-pop. I just sometimes it's hard to not compare the K-pop generation that I had experienced when I was in teenage years, and the current K-pop, because the gap is so huge that I just can't understand it. I know it shouldn't be something that I should understand, because trends changes every second, and people like something and hate something without specific reason, I guess. So I'm aware of that, but I'm just gonna be honest, and I'm just gonna be super Korean. And you know what, it's, again, if you've loved something and if you witness something for so long, then it kind of makes you become critical for the sake of that existence, if you know what I mean. Because you wanted to prosper, you wanted to develop, you wanted to excel at what they're doing, because I don't want them to go down, and I don't want them to be another crappy pop music that used to be famous. I just still want it to be famous and still want it to have a big impact globally, not as a pop music that was only famous among Koreans. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm talking with huge love of K-pop, contradictorily. So anyways, so the motivation for me to talk about this is from watching a YouTube called, not usually called, but it's by watching a YouTube channel that was made by Seo, the previous iconic queen K-pop female solo artist called Seo, and she was the iconic queen in 2000s, I guess, because she was debuted from a girls band in 2003 or 4, something like that. I haven't actually researched it, but it was definitely in 2000s. And she grew fame by doing a lot of solos, and she got really famous by her amazing character, straightforward, loves to, she was authentic. And again, she was iconic. She was honest, she was straightforward, and at the same time, nobody was able to criticize her singing talent, her dance, and her vocal. It was perfect. So anyways, I started to be really interested and really happy about the fact that she started a YouTube channel, because I've been honest, to be honest, I was kind of forgetting her existence for a while, because she wasn't appearing to the programs, or she didn't release any albums lately. So I was kind of forgetting about her. But I knew that she was iconic. She was an amazing singer. She was an amazing dancer and everything. But since I've been watching that YouTube video, I got really nostalgic about the past, the second 2.5 generations of K-pop. And I was reminiscing about my past at the same time. So because of her, I started to look and listen to the old K-pop that I used to listen when I was in primary school, middle school, and high school. And I just couldn't understand why the current K-pop became like this. Because, again, right, controversial opinion alert, I am old compared to the current famous, the mainstream listeners of K-pop. I'm 27, I'm going to be 28, and I'm 29 in Korean age. So it's going to be an old person. It's going to be an old person just complaining about the present stuff, because a lot of old people, a lot of elderlies complain about the current situations, right? God, I can't believe I'm saying like this, but you know what I mean, the context. I'm not saying I'm objectively old. I'm not saying I'm objectively old, and I'm not saying that every current K-pop trends and every K-pop music are rubbish. I'm absolutely not saying that. I'm just saying that as a person who just misses the old era, when where the vocal was strong, people were more honest with the lyrics and the dance, and no lip sync and everything. So yeah, so as a person who listened to Girls' Generations and 21, Wonder Girls, Beast, After School, Tiara, B1AF, Block B, who used to use a hand mic, and most of idols never use lip sync. They never use like the background vocal that is slightly tuned. When you listen to the current K-pop music concerts, it was never ever ever imaginable when I was in primary school, middle school, high school. So that means most of idols were already a great singer, right? As a person who was born and raised, again, in South Korea for 27 years and has been listening to K-pop for 27 years, and as a mega, big, massive fan of K-pop, and I think I'm going to love K-pop until I die. Anyway, so as a person who listened to those kind of music, where there were strong vocals and people were obsessed, like they were crazy with like dance choreography, and again, I might romanticizing the past experiences, but anyway, like, not gonna lie, the current K-pop music, when I sometimes listen to, like, watch the YouTube video of the fourth generation K-pop idols, again, ridiculously handsome, ridiculously beautiful, dancing, I just can't stop comparing to the K-pop that I listened to when I was in high school and middle school. Sorry. So, like, again, I saw most of idols that I listened to and watch was those who had already had a great vocal talent. And I'm not saying everybody, like 100%, there were amazing singers, not gonna lie, because idols, like, as you know, the K-pop industry is not really like straightforwardly like directly related to music itself. It's actually a companies commodifying beautiful girls and boys and create them to be a product. And yes, it might sound controversial, but it's really hard to deny that fact, because it is an industry, not a pure art. And the K-pop fans, including me, are the ones who just cherish and praise that product. And nowadays, like, K-pop become, like, of course, K-pop 15 years ago was also a product. It was highly produced and manufactured by the companies and by the, staffs and producers. I agree with that. But now I think it became more, like, extremely commodified, that it makes me feel like the thing that I'm watching right now, the thing that I'm listening to right now became so fake, because none of the elements that I'm listening to, none of the elements that I'm watching doesn't look very authentic anymore. Because, like, again, people started to realize from the past experience from BTS, I, and those huge, like, big trends that made billions of dollars, like, people started to know it. People started to directly realize that, okay, K-pop equals money, and if you have a massive hit, that means a huge fame and a huge money. So I think people but now they definitely know that if you make a hit, that means a huge money. And that kind of tends to make the idol industry become super, like, toxically commodified, and a bit, and if everything is so commercialized and commodified, sometimes it gets so hard to find the authenticity of the music itself and the dance itself. So it's getting rare. It's getting more rare and rare to find a good vocal and a true dancer, because the idol industry itself became of a true, like, a product, basically. And it's kind of sad to see that some idols like being afraid to sing live, being afraid to, yeah, like, I don't know why, but idols becoming scarier and scarier to sing live without any, like, the background music. And again, as a person who was born, like, who experienced the 2.5 generations, girl group and boys group who just sang everything live, dancing crazy and has a perfect pitch and perfect rhythm, and have zero problem singing and dancing at the same time. I don't know what kind of made that gap. And also, it's really hard to see that the audiences are looking for something perfect, which, like, in terms of perfect, right? The audiences are becoming more toxic to the idols itself. I think that's the main problem, because Korean audiences are so obsessed with that toxic perfectionism. I don't know how to put it. I don't know how to put everything in the right term, but if you know what I mean, like, people are starting to be obsessed with the perfectionism, which is very toxic, and I would phrase it to saying toxic perfectionism, and which kind of leads to girls getting thinner and thinner and thinner, and now there's a term called 뼈말라, which means 뼈 means bones and 말라 means skinny. So nowadays, girls band groups are looking for girls that are so thin and so skinny that shows your bones, which is very, very unhealthy. So if you compare to K-pop groups from my generations to the current generations, girls are getting skinnier and boys looking more like a girls. Like, they get thinner and thinner, and regardless of gender, people are getting thinner and thinner, and people starting to lose the importance of having a good vocal. And so besides that, they are more obsessed with the visual and the face and the skinniness of the figure rather than what makes music a music, like vocal, the rhythm and the pure talent. And like, regardless of how they look, people starting to look for that toxic perfectionism that leads to, like, very unhealthy culture of K-pop industry. And I had to really think twice about me releasing this episode, because I know there's a lot of K-pop idols, like K-pop fans out there, and even though I'm just making a podcast that not many people listens to, but still, like, it's really hard to just straightforwardly criticize and honestly speak out about the current status of K-pop industry right now. Like, people are getting thinner and people are kind of losing what's really important, which is music and dance. Because, like, purely because I'm from a different generation, it's really hard and it's really easy to compare to my generation. And yes, I think it might be okay to also assume and acknowledge my opinion to a elderly just complaining about the kids nowadays. But, you know, I'll be the elderly today then. Anyways, yeah. Since I also listen to K-pop almost every day and a huge fan of them, and I have a couple of favorite girl groups and favorite members, and I'm not kind of a fan that goes to concerts and go to fan meetings. I'm not kind of that, but to me, like, K-pop is part of my life, and so as a regular K-pop listener, as a regular K-pop concert YouTube video watcher, sometimes I get kind of love and hate emotion about the current status, which is like the things I just said it in this episode. So, like, yeah, why did we came this far? That's the question. Why now are people, the Korean K-pop like fans, audiences, are so obsessed with that toxic perfectionism of this industry? And why is all the idols are becoming a product rather than idol or singer or dancer or performer? So, because listening to the music and a performance by that commodified industry, it's really hard to immerse into it, because it's really hard to find the true authenticity of that performance, of that music. So maybe I'm kind of over fantasizing about this industry. You might able to say that you shouldn't look for those kind of things to current K-pop, and I'm aware of that. But again, do you think it's too late to talk about this in this kind of statement? So yeah, I think this episode is gonna be me just complaining about the kids these days and like the good old days, right? But it's my podcast, so I'm just gonna release it anyway. So yeah, this was a humble opinion, a controversial opinion from a 27-year-old lifelong K-pop listener and the critic of K-pop, a amateur K-pop critic. So yeah, right. Thanks for listening to this episode as my humble little amateur episode today as well. And I hope you're going to have an amazing weekend today. And I hope we can see next week. Bye-bye.